Marcus Johnson had billions in his bank account, but couldn't buy the one thing he desperately needed: someone to love him for who he truly was. So he made a dangerous decision. He would disappear completely and become invisible. What happened next changed everything. Marcus stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his family's Ikoyi mansion, watching Lagos traffic crawl below like ants. Behind him, his father's voice thundered through the marble halls. "You will marry Linda next month, and that is final." Chief Emmanuel Johnson slammed his fist on the mahogany desk, making the crystal whiskey glasses rattle. At 63, he was still a force of nature, broad-shouldered, commanding, with eyes that had built an oil empire from nothing. Marcus turned slowly, his jaw tight. "I don't love her, Father." "Love?" Chief Johnson laughed bitterly. "I didn't love your mother when we married. Love came later. This is about legacy, about securing our family's future. Linda doesn't even look at me during dinner. She spends the whole time photographing her food for Instagram and asking about our investment portfolio. She comes from good stock. Her father controls 3 state contracts we need." Marcus felt something inside him crack. This wasn't the first arranged marriage his father had pushed. Last year, it was Jennifer, a lawyer who spent their first date calculating his net worth on her phone. Before that, Zainab, beautiful, educated, and completely obsessed with becoming Mrs. Johnson for the social status. "I have 6 months," Marcus said quietly. "Give me 6 months to find someone on my own terms. If I fail, I'll marry whoever you choose." Chief Johnson's eyes narrowed. "You think you can find a suitable wife wandering around like a common man? These society girls are your only options." "Then let me prove you wrong." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Chief Johnson nodded once. 6 months. But when you fail, and you will fail, you marry Linda without protest. And Marcus, if you embarrass this family in the process, I will cut you off completely. No money, no name, nothing. Marcus walked out of that office knowing his father expected him to fail. Chief Johnson didn't understand that failure wasn't what Marcus feared. He feared spending his entire life wondering if anyone could love him for just being Marcus, not the heir, not the fortune, just the man. 3 days later, Marcus sat in a cramped internet cafe in Yaba, creating a new identity. Mark. Simple, forgettable, perfect. His best friend Chidi leaned over his shoulder, shaking his head. "You've officially lost your mind. You know that, right?" "Probably." Marcus typed carefully, filling out an online job application for waiter positions. "But I'm doing it anyway. Your father will destroy you if he finds out." "He won't. You're the only person who knows where I'll be." Chidi pulled up a chair, his expression serious now. "Talk to me. What's really happening here?" Marcus stopped typing. How could he explain the emptiness that had been growing inside him for years? The way every woman his father introduced smiled at his last name before ever looking at his face. The exhaustion of never knowing if someone's laughter was genuine or calculated. "Remember when we were kids?" Marcus said quietly. "Before anyone knew my father struck oil? When we played football in the street and shared pure water sachets? We were 8 years old, Marcus. People treated me like a person then, just another kid. When did that stop? When did I become a walking bank account?" Chidi was quiet for a moment. "So you're going to pretend to be poor?" "I'm going to be invisible, just another face in the crowd." Marcus submitted the application and started on another. "I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Yaba this morning. Paid 6 months up front in cash. The landlord thinks I'm a graduate looking for work. What about your car? Your clothes? Your watch collection?" "Sold the car. Donated most of the clothes. Bought everything I need from Belogan Market." Marcus pulled out his new phone. A basic Nokia, nothing smart about it. "This is my life now. For 6 months. For however long it takes." Chidi stood up, conflicted but loyal. "If you passed away eating poor quality suya, I'm not explaining this to your father." Marcus laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in weeks. The next morning he received 3 interview callbacks. One was from a restaurant called the Golden Terrace in Victoria Island. Mark, accepted immediately. Marcus's hands trembled as he tied the black apron around his waist. The staff changing room smelled like disinfectant and old shoes, nothing like the designer boutiques he was used to. "You're the new guy? Mark, right?" A short, cheerful man extended his hand. He had kind eyes and a smile that reached them. "I'm Emeka. Been here 4 years. Don't worry, Mr. Babatunde barks loud, but he's fair." Before Marcus could respond, the door swung open. A tall man with graying temples and a sharp suit entered, clipboard in hand. "Johnson." Mr. Babatunde's voice could cut glass. "You're late. Training started 3 minutes ago." "Sorry, sir, Save it. Follow Emeka. Watch everything. Touch nothing until I say so." The lunch rush hit like a tsunami. Marcus had never experienced anything like it. The heat from the kitchen, the constant movement, the weight of trays that made his shoulders scream. He'd been to 1,000 restaurants but never understood the chaos behind those polished doors. "Table 7 needs water," Emeka called out. "Move fast but don't run. Look confident even when you're terrified." Marcus grabbed the water pitcher and headed to table 7. His expensive private education hadn't prepared him for balancing glassware while dodging other waiters in tight spaces. He made it halfway across the room before everything went wrong. A woman's purse strap caught his foot. Marcus stumbled and the pitcher tilted. Water cascaded onto a businessman's laptop. The restaurant went silent. "You idiot!" The businessman jumped up, his white shirt soaked. "This laptop cost more than you make in 6 months." Marcus knew the laptop model. He owned the same one. The man was right. It did cost more than a waiter's 6-month salary. Mr. Babatunde appeared instantly, his face thunderous. "My office. Now." Marcus survived that first day by sheer luck. Mr. Babatunde docked his first week's pay for the laptop damage and put him on probation. "One more mistake. You're gone." 2 weeks passed in a blur of aching feet and burned fingers. Marcus learned to carry 4 plates at once, memorize orders without writing them down, and smile even when customers snapped their fingers at him like he was invisible. He was wiping down tables after the lunch rush when she walked in. The woman wore blue scrubs with a stethoscope draped around her neck. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and exhaustion lined her face. But when she smiled at the hostess, something about her made Marcus pause. She sat in his section. "Just water and the vegetable rice, please," she said, not looking up from the medical journal she'd opened. "I have 30 minutes before my next shift." Her voice was soft but firm, professional. "Long day?" Marcus asked, pouring her water. She glanced up and he noticed her eyes, deep brown and intelligent. 72-hour rotation. I'm a resident at General Hospital. Some days I forget what sleep feels like." "That sounds brutal." "It is." She smiled tiredly. "But someone has to do it. These patients need care, and there aren't enough of us to go around." Marcus brought her food quickly. She ate while reading, occasionally making notes in the margins of her journal. When she paid, she left a generous tip, more than the meal cost. "Thank you," she said, meeting his eyes properly for the first time. "You're new here, right? I haven't seen you before." "Started 2 weeks ago." "Well, Mark," she read his name tag, "you're doing great. This is my favorite spot to grab food between shifts. I'll probably see you again." She left, and Marcus realized he hadn't asked her name. She returned 3 days later. Same blue scrubs, same exhausted smile, same section. "The usual?" Marcus asked, water pitcher already in hand. Her eyebrows lifted. "You remember? Vegetable rice, extra vegetables, light on the oil. You're very specific about your order." She laughed, a real laugh that made her whole face change. "Occupational hazard. When you spend all day being precise about medications and dosages, it bleeds into everything else. I'm Grace, by the way. Grace Adelec. Mark Johnson. The lie rolled off his tongue easier now, though it still felt wrong. The restaurant was quieter than usual. Grace ate slowly, occasionally looking up from her journal to watch the rain hammering against the windows. "Do you mind if I ask what you're reading?" Marcus ventured during a lull. "Community health initiatives in underserved areas." Grace closed the journal, apparently grateful for the distraction. "I'm researching how to set up low-cost clinics in neighborhoods that can't afford proper health care." "That's ambitious." "It's necessary." Her voice carried quiet passion. "I grew up in Surulere. My younger brother David got sick when he was 7. Nothing serious, just pneumonia. But we couldn't afford the private hospitals. The public hospital waiting room was so packed we waited 11 hours before a doctor saw him." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. He'd never waited for anything in his life. "He's okay now," Grace continued, "but that day changed me. I realized that zip codes shouldn't determine who lives and who passed away." "So you became a doctor?" "So I became a doctor who refuses to forget where she came from." Grace checked her watch and sighed. "I have to get back." "But Mark?" "Thank you for listening. Most people's eyes glaze over when I talk about this stuff." As she left, Marcus realized he'd just had the most genuine conversation he'd had in years, and he hadn't said a single true thing about himself. Marcus was clearing table 12 when Amika grabbed his arm, eyes wide with panic. "Big problem. VIP reservation just walked in. Some oil company chief with his business partners. Mr. Babatundi wants all hands perfect. No mistakes." Marcus's heart ran cold. "Which oil company?" "Johnson Industries, the big man himself." The tray in Marcus's hands nearly crashed to the floor. His father was here. "Mark, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Bathroom. I need the bathroom." Marcus shoved the tray at Emika and bolted toward the kitchen. He pressed himself against the storage room wall, heart hammering. Through the small window in the door, he could see his father being seated at the best table, the one by the window, the one in full view of the entire restaurant. Chief Emmanuel Johnson sat down like he owned the building, which, knowing his father's investment portfolio, he probably did. "Mark!" Mr. Babatunde's voice cut through Marcus's panic. "What are you doing hiding back here? We need everyone on the floor." "I'm sick, I think." Mr. Babatunde's eyes narrowed. "You look fine to me." "It just hit." "Please, sir. Let me stay in the kitchen. I can wash dishes, prep food, anything, just not the dining room." Something in Marcus's desperation must have shown because Mr. Babatunde's expression softened slightly. "Fine. But you're on dish duty for the rest of the week." "Thank you, sir." Marcus spent the next hour scrubbing plates, straining to hear his father's conversation through the kitchen door. The words drifted in fragments. "Disappointing son. Wasting time. When I find him." His father's voice carried the same contempt it always did when discussing Marcus's disappearance. "Ungrateful boy thinks he can just walk away from his responsibilities." Marcus scrubbed harder, his knuckles white around the brush. Grace started coming to the Golden Terrace almost every day. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Marcus learned she had a wicked sense of humor hidden beneath her professional demeanor. She learned he loved old Nollywood films and could quote them word for word. 3 weeks after they met, Marcus took a chance. "Grace, I know this is forward, but would you want to spend your next day off together, outside of this restaurant?" She looked up from her rice, surprised. Then that smile spread across her face. "Are you asking me on a date, Mark Johnson?" "I'm asking if you'd like to see something beautiful, no pressure." "Thursday. I have the whole day free for the first time in 2 months." Thursday morning they met at Lecky Conservation Center. Grace wore jeans and a simple yellow blouse, the first time Marcus had seen her out of scrubs. She looked younger, lighter somehow. They walked the canopy bridge, Grace gripping the rails and laughing nervously at the height. They watched monkeys swing through trees and ate roasted corn from a vendor who recognized Grace and refused her payment. "Dr. Grace treated my daughter for free when we had no money," the woman insisted. This corn is nothing. Marcus filed that information away, another piece of Grace's character revealing itself. As sunset painted the sky orange and purple, they sat on a bench near the lagoon. Grace talked about her dreams, the community clinic, mobile health units, training programs for village health workers. It sounds expensive, Marcus said carefully. It is. But maybe someday I'll find funding, or win the lottery. She laughed. A girl can dream, right? Marcus wanted to tell her he could fund every dream she'd ever had. Instead, he said, "You'll make it happen. I believe that." Their faces moved closer. Grace's eyes fluttered closed. Then her phone exploded with ringtones. "Emergency. I have to go. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm so sorry." She was gone before he could respond. Kenneth had worked at the Golden Terrace for 7 years. 7 years of fake smiles, aching legs, and watching rich people waste money on single meals that cost more than his monthly rent. He'd started as a university graduate with big dreams. Now he was 32, still serving plates, still invisible. Then Mark Johnson arrived, and something about the new guy didn't add up. Kenneth noticed things others missed. The way Mark held silverware, not like someone who'd learned on the job, but like someone raised with proper table etiquette. The way he spoke, educated accent slipping through despite obvious attempts to sound ordinary. And then there was the watch. Kenneth had been grabbing his jacket from the staff locker when Mark's bag fell open. There, wrapped in a cloth, was a Patek Philippe watch. Kenneth knew watches. He'd served enough wealthy customers to recognize a timepiece worth more than a car. "Why do you have that?" Kenneth asked when Mark returned. Mark's face went pale. "It's fake. I bought it from a street vendor. I've seen enough real Patek Philippe's to know the difference. That's real. It was my father's. It's all I have left of him." The lie was smooth, but Kenneth didn't believe it. Rich boys didn't become waiters unless they were playing games, and Kenneth was tired of being someone's game piece. "Your secret's safe with me," Kenneth said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We all have our stories, right?" But Kenneth watched Mark more carefully after that. He watched him with the female doctor who came in daily. He watched how Mr. Babatunde had let Mark hide in the kitchen when that oil tycoon visited. Suspicious behavior for a regular waiter. Kenneth had been invisible his whole life. Maybe it was time to be seen, even if it meant exposing someone else's secrets. "My family wants to meet you," Grace said one evening, her voice casual but her eyes nervous. "Unless that's too much too soon." Marcus's heart jumped. "I'd love to meet them." The following Sunday, he took 2 buses to Surulere, carrying a modest bouquet of flowers he'd bought with his waiter salary. Grace's family lived in a faded yellow building, 3 floors up, where the stairwell smelled like jollof rice and bleach. Grace opened the door, pulling him inside. "Everyone, this is Mark." The apartment was small but spotlessly clean. Family photos covered every wall. Grace graduating medical school, a young boy in football uniform, parents on their wedding day. Grace's mother, Mrs. Adalek, was a softer version of her daughter. She hugged Marcus like he was already family. "Any friend of Grace's is welcome here. Come sit. You're too thin. Grace, this boy needs feeding." Mr. Adalek was harder to read. He shook Marcus's hand firmly, his eyes assessing. "So you're a waiter?" "Yes, sir, at the Golden Terrace." "Honest work. I respect that." But his tone suggested he'd hoped for more for his daughter. Then David burst from the back room, 15 years old, all energy and elbows. "You're the guy my sister won't stop talking about. Do you watch football? Arsenal or Chelsea?" "David," Grace's face flushed. Lunch was loud, warm, and chaotic. Mrs. Adalek kept piling food on Marcus's plate. David argued about football. Mr. Adalek asked careful questions about Marcus's family, questions Marcus deflected with practiced vagueness. But underneath the warmth, Marcus noticed the cracks. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Mrs. Adalek's phone screen was shattered. Mr. Adalek mentioned working 2 security jobs. When David showed Marcus his room, the boy's pride was obvious, despite the peeling paint and single small window. Grace sends money home every month, David said quietly. She's the reason I'm still in school. Marcus felt guilt settle in his stomach like stones. Marcus was walking home from his shift when his phone rang. Not his Nokia, the smartphone he kept hidden in his apartment for emergencies. Chidi's name flashed on the screen. "We have a problem. Victoria Nwosu is looking for you." Marcus stopped walking. Victoria, his father's business partner's daughter. The woman who'd considered their arranged marriage a done deal before Marcus had even been asked. "How do you know?" "She called me. Twice. Asked if I knew where you were. Said she's worried about you, that you're going through something and she wants to help." Chidi's voice was tense. "Marcus, she's hired someone. A private investigator. She can't find me, I've been careful. She's obsessed. You know how she gets. She told everyone at her father's company party that you two were engaged. When you disappeared, she lost face. Now she wants you back to prove she can have whatever she wants." Marcus leaned against a wall, exhaustion and fear mixing. "How long do I have?" "I don't know, but Marcus, Victoria doesn't give up. Ever. And if she finds you before you're ready..." Chidi didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Marcus was midway through his evening shift when Grace burst through the restaurant door, still in her scrubs, her face crumpled with terror. "Mark!" She grabbed his arm. "It's David. He collapsed at school. They're rushing him to General Hospital right now." Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her phone. Marcus guided her to a chair, his mind racing. "What happened?" "Abdominal pain. Vomiting. The school nurse thinks it's appendicitis, but..." Her voice cracked. "Mark, if it's ruptured, if there's infection, he needs surgery immediately, and we can't afford..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Mr. Babatunde appeared, taking in the scene. "Go, both of you. Family emergency." They ran to the street and flagged down a taxi. Grace called her parents during the ride, her voice breaking as she tried to stay calm. Marcus held her free hand, feeling utterly helpless. General Hospital's emergency room was chaos. People everywhere, not enough chairs, the smell of antiseptic and fear. Grace's parents were already there, her mother crying, her father pacing. A tired doctor emerged 40 minutes later. "David Adelek's family?" They rushed forward. "It's a ruptured appendix with peritonitis. He needs emergency surgery within the hour, but..." The doctor's expression turned apologetic. "The surgery, antibiotics, and recovery will cost approximately 2 million naira. Your insurance covers only half. We need confirmation of payment before we can proceed." The number hung in the air like a toxic substance. Mrs. Adelek's knees buckled. Mr. Adelek caught her, his face aging 10 years in seconds. "We don't have that kind of money. Our savings are maybe 300,000. "We can take out loans," Grace said desperately. "I can ask my colleagues." "That takes time," the doctor said gently. "He doesn't have time." Marcus watched Grace's world collapse, watched her parents hold each other, watched David's life hang in the balance because of numbers on a bank account. He'd never felt more disgusted by his own deception, or more certain about what he had to do next. "I need to make a phone call," Marcus told Grace. "I'll be right back." He walked outside into the humid night air, hands shaking as he pulled out his hidden smartphone. The hospital's financial department would still be open. Private hospitals always had someone managing money. Marcus dialed Chidi first. "I need you to set up a Shell account. Now. Make it untraceable back to me. I need to transfer money, and it has to look like it's coming from a charitable foundation." "Marcus, what's happening?" "Grace's brother is dying. I'm not letting that happen. Can you do this or not?" Chidi was silent for 3 seconds. "Give me 10 minutes. Marcus paced the parking lot, watching ambulances come and go. Inside that building, David was getting worse every minute. Inside that waiting room, Grace was falling apart. His phone buzzed. Chidi had sent account details and created a fake foundation called Hope Bridge Medical Initiative, complete with a basic website thrown together in minutes. Marcus called the hospital's financial office. "This is James Okoye from Hope Bridge Medical Initiative. We received an urgent request regarding a patient named David Adelek. We'd like to cover his full surgical costs immediately." The administrator sounded shocked. "Sir, that's highly unusual. Our foundation applications typically take weeks. This is an emergency intervention. I'm transferring 2.5 million naira now to cover surgery, medication, and recovery. The extra is for any complications." Marcus was already moving money from his offshore account. "You should see the transfer in minutes. Please begin the surgery immediately." "But sir, we need paperwork, verification." "Your patient is dying while we talk about paperwork. The money is real. Save him first, verify later." He hung up before she could argue further. 10 minutes later, Marcus watched through the waiting room window as the same doctor approached Grace's family. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw Grace's mother collapse in relief, saw her father's tears, saw Grace's face transform from despair to confused hope. She looked around the waiting room, searching for Marcus. He stepped back into the shadows. Some things were better left unexplained. For now, David's surgery was successful. The infection was caught in time, and within 3 days he was sitting up in bed, complaining about hospital food, a good sign according to the nurses. But Grace couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She sat in the hospital's administrative office, her medical credentials giving her access most families wouldn't have. "I need to understand how this foundation works. My family received 2.5 million naira within hours. That doesn't happen." The administrator, Mrs. Ogunlade, looked uncomfortable. "Dr. Adelek, we're just grateful the funds came through. Your brother is alive." "I'm grateful too, but I'm also a scientist. Things that don't make sense bother me." Grace leaned forward. "How did this Hope Bridge Medical Initiative even know about David? We hadn't applied anywhere. We didn't have time." Mrs. Ogunlade pulled up her computer records. "According to our files, they called us directly. The representative said they'd received an urgent request." "From who?" "It doesn't say." Grace felt her stomach tighten. "Can I see the foundation's information? Their registration, their board members, their previous donations?" Mrs. Ogunlade clicked through several screens, her frown deepening. "That's odd. The website exists, but it's very basic, and I can't find any record of previous donations to any hospital in Nigeria. So a foundation that's never donated to anyone suddenly gave my family millions of naira within hours of David's collapse? When you put it that way..." Mrs. Ogunlade looked genuinely troubled now. Grace's phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "How's David doing? Been thinking about you all." She stared at the message, her mind working through the timeline. David collapsed at 4 p.m. She found Mark at the restaurant by 4:30. They reached the hospital by 5:15. The doctor gave them the cost at 6 p.m. The foundation called at 6:30, 30 minutes. In those 30 minutes, someone had learned about David's situation, researched the costs, and arranged millions of funds. Grace looked at Mark's text again. He'd disappeared to make a phone call at exactly 6 p.m. She closed her eyes, not wanting to believe what her logical mind was telling her. But doctors were trained to follow evidence, not hope. Victoria Nwosu didn't walk into the Golden Terrace. She made an entrance. Designer handbag swinging, diamond earrings catching every light, heels clicking against marble like gunshots. 2 friends flanked her, equally polished, equally bored with their own wealth. Marcus was refilling water glasses when he saw her. His hand froze mid-pour. "Excuse me?" Victoria snapped her fingers at him without looking up. "We need a table, preferably somewhere people can actually see us." Marcus kept his head down, grateful for the slight beard he'd grown. "Right this way, ma'am." He led them to a prominent table near the window, exactly where Victoria wanted to be. She sat down like she was posing for invisible cameras, which, given her Instagram habits, she probably was. "The service here better be good," Victoria announced loudly. "I'm meeting someone important later. We're closing in on finding my fiancé. Can you imagine, the heir to the Johnson Empire just vanished? But you wouldn't know anything about that kind of wealth, would you? Her friends laughed. Marcus handed them menus, his jaw clenched. What's your name? Victoria asked, finally looking directly at him. His heart stopped. But her eyes slid past his face without recognition. He was just another servant beneath her notice. Mark, ma'am. Well, Mark, I want the lobster, but I need to know it's fresh. Like caught this morning fresh. Can your little kitchen handle that? I'll check with the chef, ma'am. As he walked away, he heard Victoria continue her conversation. Marcus Johnson thinks he can hide from me forever. My investigator is so close. Once I found him, he will realize running was pointless. We're meant to be together. Everyone knows it. Her friend asked, but what if he doesn't want to marry you? Victoria's laugh was cold. Wanting has nothing to do with it. It's about what's right for our families. He'll understand eventually. Mrs. Folake had been a private investigator for 20 years. She'd found missing children, cheating spouses, and hidden assets. Finding one rebellious billionaire should have been simple, except Marcus was smarter than most runaways. She sat in her car outside the Golden Terrace reviewing her notes. 3 months of investigation had turned up nothing. No credit card transactions, no passport activity, no contact with known associates except one name that kept appearing. Chidi, Marcus's childhood friend. But Chidi was loyal to a fault. She'd tried bribing him, threatening him, even following him. Nothing. Mrs. Folake needed a different approach. She walked into the restaurant during the mid-afternoon lull. Only a few tables were occupied. A thin waiter with tired eyes approached her. His name tag read, Kenneth. Just coffee, please, and maybe some information. Kenneth's expression shifted, the look of someone who recognized opportunity. What kind of information? I'm looking for someone. Young man, late 20s, probably new to this kind of work. He'd stand out somehow. Too educated for the job, maybe. Too careful about being noticed. Kenneth poured her coffee slowly, thinking, why would someone like that work here? Because he's hiding, and I'm very good at finding people who hide. Mrs. Folake slid an envelope across the table. 500,000 for useful information. $1 million if it leads me to who I'm looking for. Kenneth stared at the envelope like it might bite him. $1 million. That was 2 years' salary. That was everything he'd been struggling for. There's a waiter named Mark, Kenneth said quietly. Started 3 months ago. Has an expensive watch he claims is fake. Got really nervous when Chief Johnson came in for dinner. Hid in the kitchen the whole time. And he's dating some doctor who doesn't know he's loaded. Mrs. Folake smiled. Tell me everything about Mark. Grace sat in the hospital's records room at 2 a.m. unable to sleep. She'd traded shifts with a colleague to get access to the financial database. Her fingers moved across the keyboard following the money trail. Hope Bridge Medical Initiative had transferred funds from an account in the Cayman Islands. The foundation's registration was dated 3 days before David's surgery. Impossibly recent. She dug deeper, using her medical clearance to access restricted financial pathways. The shell companies led to more shell companies, each layer designed to hide the source. But Grace had always been persistent. It was why she'd survived medical school, why she worked 70-hour weeks, why she wouldn't stop until she understood. At 4 a.m. she found it. A name buried in transaction records, linked to the offshore account through a series of international transfers. Marcus Johnson. Her hands started shaking. She pulled out her phone and searched the name. Images flooded her screen. Marcus at charity galas in designer suits. Marcus standing beside Chief Emmanuel Johnson at oil industry conferences. Marcus in society magazines, always with a beautiful woman on his arm, always looking bored. And there, in a candid photo from 2 years ago, that same face. Cleaner shaven, better dressed, but unmistakably him. Mark Johnson was Marcus Johnson. The waiter she'd fallen for was one of Nigeria's wealthiest heirs. Every conversation replayed in her mind. Every moment she'd shared her struggles, her financial worries, her dreams that seemed impossible because of money. And he'd sat there, pretending to understand, pretending to be just like her. He'd had millions at his fingertips while she worried about her family's rent. Grace closed the laptop, her chest tight with betrayal. Then another thought hit her, this one worse than the first. She pulled up her own bank records, staring at a truth she'd been avoiding. She wasn't exactly who she'd claimed to be either. Grace spent 2 days planning exactly what she'd say to Marcus. She rehearsed the confrontation in her mind, the accusations, the demands for honesty, the righteous anger. But each time she prepared to call him, her finger hovered over his number and stopped, because she kept remembering her uncle's will reading 6 months ago. To my beloved niece, Dr. Grace Adelek, I leave controlling interest in Adelek Pharmaceuticals, all associated properties, and the sum of $78 million. She'd been shocked. Her uncle Bernard had always been successful, but she'd never imagined this level of wealth. He'd built a pharmaceutical empire while she was in medical school, and he'd left it all to her. Grace had told no one except her lawyer. Not her parents. They'd stop her from working at the public hospital. Not her colleagues. They'd treat her differently. Not the 3 men who'd dated her that year, each one conveniently more interested after learning about her inheritance. So she'd hidden it. Continued her residency. Kept living modestly. Told everyone she was just a medical resident, and let them assume that meant struggling financially. She'd been doing exactly what Marcus was doing. Testing people, searching for someone who'd love her for herself, not her bank account. Grace sat on her apartment floor, laptop open to Marcus's photos, her own financial statements spread around her. 2 people. Same fear, same solution, same deception. She'd been furious at his lie while living her own. The anger drained out of her, replaced by something more complicated. Understanding mixed with sadness, connection tangled with betrayal. Grace picked up her phone and typed a message to Marcus. Can we meet tomorrow? I need to talk to you about something important. His response came quickly. Of course. Is everything okay? She stared at those words, knowing that after tomorrow nothing would be okay. But maybe honesty was worth the destruction. Marcus had never been more nervous in his life. He stood on his apartment building's rooftop, adjusting the small table for the 10th time. Nothing fancy. He couldn't afford fancy on a waiter's salary. Just a simple dinner he'd cooked himself, candles in jars, and a view of Lagos's chaotic skyline. The ring had cost him 3 months of tips. A modest silver band with a small diamond, nothing like the rings he could have bought with his real money, but this one meant something. He'd earned it. Grace arrived wearing a sundress, her expression unreadable. Mark, what's all this? I wanted to do something special. His voice shook slightly. These past few months with you have been the best of my life. They sat down, and Marcus served the jollof rice he'd spent all afternoon perfecting. Grace picked at her food, quieter than usual. Grace, I know I'm just a waiter. I know I can't give you the world or solve all your problems. Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. But I can give you honesty. I can give you someone who sees you, really sees you, and loves everything he sees. Tears welled in Grace's eyes, but not the happy kind. You're brilliant, compassionate, and stronger than anyone I've ever met, Marcus continued, pulling out the small box. I don't have much, but what I have, I want to share with you. Grace Adeleke, will you marry me? The ring caught the candlelight, humble but real. Grace looked at the ring, then at Marcus, her expression breaking his heart before she even spoke. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. But she was crying now, and Marcus realized these weren't tears of joy. Grace, what's wrong? She opened her mouth to tell him everything. Then her phone rang with Victoria's name flashing on the screen, somehow saved as unknown caller. Grace never saved unknown numbers. Marcus stared at Grace's phone screen. Why do you have Victoria Nwosu's number? Grace's face went pale. I don't. That says unknown caller. But Marcus had seen it, just for a split second before the display changed. His mind raced. Had Victoria found Grace? Was this part of some scheme? Grace declined the call, but it rang again immediately. This time it showed properly. Victoria Nwosu. Answer it, Marcus said quietly. I need to know what's happening. Grace pressed speaker. Hello? Dr. Adeleke, finally. This is Victoria Nwosu. We met briefly at the Medical Association Gala last year. I have a rather urgent matter to discuss with you. Marcus's blood turned to ice. The Medical Association Gala, where wealthy donors met with doctors, where Grace would have been representing. I'm actually quite busy right now, Grace said, her voice steady despite everything. This won't take long. I'm downstairs, actually, at the Golden Terrace. I know you frequent this restaurant, and I thought we might talk about a business opportunity. My investigator mentioned you have connections here. The pieces clicked into place for Marcus. Mrs. Folake had been watching the restaurant, had seen Grace, had connected her to Mark Johnson. I'm not at the restaurant, Grace said. No, but your waiter friend is. Mark Johnson, isn't it? Such a lovely young man. I had the most interesting conversation about him today with one of his colleagues, a Kenneth somebody, very talkative once properly motivated. Marcus stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over the table. Victoria's voice continued, sweet as toxic substance. Here's the thing, Dr. Adeleke. I know you've been dating this waiter, and I know some other interesting facts. For instance, did you know that Mark Johnson doesn't exist? There's no birth certificate, no school records, nothing before 3 months ago. Grace's hand tightened around the phone. What do you want? Just a conversation. Downstairs. The restaurant. 20 minutes. Come alone, or I'll make sure every news outlet in Lagos knows that the mysterious heir to Adeleke Pharmaceuticals has been slumming it with the help while pretending to be poor. Your shareholders would find that fascinating, don't you think? The call ended. Marcus and Grace stared at each other across the rooftop table, the engagement ring still sitting in its box between them. You know who I am, Marcus said flatly. You know who I am, Grace replied. How long? 2 days. You? About 30 seconds. They stood in silence, the city noise filling the space where trust used to be. Finally, Grace picked up the ring box and closed it gently. We should probably go deal with Victoria. Together. Do we have a choice? The taxi ride to the Golden Terrace was suffocating. Marcus and Grace sat on opposite sides of the back seat, the space between them feeling like an ocean. I need to explain, Marcus started. I already knew, Marcus. Grace's voice was quiet but firm. I found out 2 days ago. I traced the money you used to pay for David's surgery. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. You knew? When I proposed, you already knew? Yes. And you said yes anyway? Grace turned to face him, her eyes red but dry now. I said yes because I understood why you lied. Because I've been doing the same thing. What are you talking about? 6 months ago, my uncle passed away and left me his pharmaceutical company, Adeleke Pharmaceuticals. I inherited $78 million and became the majority shareholder. Grace's laugh was bitter. I kept working at the public hospital, kept living in my small apartment, kept pretending I was just a struggling resident because I was tired of people loving my bank account instead of me. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. You're wealthy? Not as wealthy as you, apparently. But yes, wealthy enough that the 3 men I dated before you all suddenly became very interested once word of the inheritance leaked. She met his eyes. Sound familiar? Grace, We're both liars, Marcus. We both played dress-up in other people's lives because we were too afraid to be ourselves. We both tested each other like we were lab experiments instead of trusting like adults. The taxi pulled up to the Golden Terrace. Through the window, they could see Victoria sitting at a prominent table, flanked by Mrs. Folake and Kenneth. A small crowd of curious onlookers had gathered. Victoria had clearly made sure this would be public. She's going to expose both of us, Marcus said. Probably. Your shareholders will lose faith. My father will force me into marriage with her. Everything we've built was built on lies anyway. Grace opened the car door. Maybe it's time for the truth. Marcus grabbed her hand. Wait. Before we go in there, I need you to know something. Everything I felt for you was real. Every conversation, every laugh, every moment. The only lie was my name. The rest was me. The real me. Falling in love with the real you. Grace's composure cracked slightly. I fell in love with you too. The you who served tables and listened to my dreams and made terrible jokes about medical terminology. But was that even real? Or were we both just playing characters? I don't know, Marcus admitted. But I want to find out. After this disaster with Victoria, after all the truth comes out, I want to try again. Honestly this time. You're proposing we start over? I'm proposing we start for the first time. For real. Grace squeezed his hand once. Let's survive Victoria first. Then we'll see if there's anything left to start. They walked into the golden terrace together, ready to face the destruction of everything they'd pretended to be. Victoria's smile was triumphant as Marcus and Grace approached. Camera phones were already out, other diners sensing drama, recording everything. There they are, the happy couple. Victoria gestured theatrically. Please, sit. Let's all be honest with each other for once. Marcus remained standing. What do you want, Victoria? What I've always wanted. You. Your family's name. The life we were supposed to have together. She turned to Grace with mock sympathy. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this, Dr. Adalek. Or should I say, Miss Billionaire Heiress? Yes, I know about your little secret, too. Grace's expression didn't change. Then you know I don't need Marcus's money any more than he needs mine. But that's the beautiful part. Victoria clapped her hands together. You're both frauds. Both playing dress-up like children. Marcus pretending to be poor, you pretending to be struggling. It's pathetic, really. Kenneth shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly not expecting this level of cruelty. Even Mrs. Folake looked uneasy. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria continued. Marcus, you're going to end this ridiculous charade with the good doctor. You're going to return home and we're going to announce our engagement. Your father has already agreed. It's good for both our families. My father doesn't control me. Doesn't he? He cut you off once before. What makes you think he won't do it again? Victoria's eyes glittered. And you, Grace? Your board of directors would be very interested to know you've been lying about your circumstances. Shareholders don't like dishonesty. It makes them nervous about what else you might be hiding. Grace stepped forward, her voice ice cold. Let me tell you what's actually going to happen, Victoria. You're going to walk out of here and leave us alone, because if you don't, I'll make sure every business associate of your father's knows about the time you embezzled funds from your family's charity foundation to pay for your lifestyle. Victoria's face went white. You can't prove that. I'm on the board of directors for 3 medical charities. We share financial information. Your accountant was sloppy. Grace pulled out her phone. I have documentation. So here's my counteroffer. Disappear from our lives or I make sure your family name becomes synonymous with theft and corruption. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Victoria stood up, shaking with rage. This isn't over. Yes, Marcus said quietly. It is. By morning, the video had gone viral. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation and posted it online. Billionaire heir versus pharmaceutical heiress, the love story nobody saw coming. Marcus's phone rang at 6 a.m. His father's name flashed on the screen. Get home now. Chief Johnson sat in his study, the viral video playing on his tablet. He looked older than Marcus remembered. Tired, almost fragile. 6 months, Chief Johnson said without preamble. 6 months you let me believe you were missing, dead possibly. Do you have any idea what that did to your mother? I'm sorry, I needed... To find yourself? To play poor? I read the comments, Marcus. People think this is romantic. I think it's the most selfish thing you've ever done. But his father's voice lacked its usual thunder. Sit down. We need to talk. Marcus sat. Victoria's family is threatening lawsuits. The media won't stop calling. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Chief Johnson poured 2 glasses of whiskey despite the early hour. But you know what the strangest part is? I watched that video, and I saw something I haven't seen in years. I saw you standing up for yourself, fighting for something you actually wanted. Marcus stared at his father, shocked. I've been pushing you toward marriages that would benefit the business. I convinced myself it was for your own good, for the family legacy. Chief Johnson drank deeply. I forgot that I married your mother because I loved her, not because it made business sense. My father was furious at the time. She came from nothing, but she made me a better man. Father, this Grace, she comes from a good family. The best. Her parents are honest, hard-working people. Her brother is smart and kind, and Grace herself, Marcus's voice caught. She's everything I didn't know I needed. Chief Johnson was quiet for a long moment. Then fight for her. But Marcus, no more lies, no more pretending. If you're going to build something with this woman, build it on truth. That's the only foundation that lasts. Across town, Grace faced a similar conversation with her parents. Her mother held her hands, crying and laughing simultaneously. Our daughter, a billionaire, washing dishes in our kitchen like nothing changed. Because nothing did change, I'm still me. No, her father said gently. Everything changed. The question is, what do we do now? Kenneth's interview aired on primetime television 2 days later. He'd sold his story to the highest bidder, a tabloid news program that specialized in tearing down the wealthy. I worked beside Marcus Johnson for 3 months, Kenneth told the camera, his face a mask of righteous indignation. He treated poverty like a costume, like our struggles were entertainment for him. The host leaned forward. You feel betrayed? We all do. Blessing. She's a single mother working 2 jobs. She shared her lunch with him when she thought he couldn't afford food. Emika lent him money for transport. We trusted him. Kenneth's voice trembled with practiced emotion. But it was all a joke to him. Rich boy playing pretend while real people suffer. The segment showed clips of the Golden Terrace, interviews with other staff members, and the viral video of the confrontation. They edited everything to make Marcus look like a spoiled heir mocking the working class. By evening, protesters gathered outside the Johnson estate. Signs read, "Poverty isn't a costume," and "Check your privilege." The Golden Terrace's business dropped by 60% overnight. Mr. Babatunde called an emergency staff meeting. I have to let people go, he said, his voice heavy. We can't survive this scandal. I'm sorry. Emika stood up, his usual cheerful demeanor gone. This is wrong. Marcus worked hard here. He never complained, never acted superior. Kenneth is lying about his character. Kenneth told the truth about his identity. Someone shot back. But not about his heart. Blessing's voice cut through the argument. Marcus gave me cab fare when my daughter was sick and I had to leave early. He stayed late to cover my shifts. He never asked for anything back. Because he didn't need anything back. Kenneth slammed his hand on the table. He's worth billions. Every kind gesture was just him playing a character. Mr. Babatunde raised his hand for silence. It doesn't matter anymore. The damage is done. Marcus is fired, effective immediately. And Kenneth, he looked at the man with disappointment. You're fired too. We don't employ people who betray their co-workers for money, no matter how justified they think they are. Kenneth's face went red. You're firing me for telling the truth? I'm firing you for selling out a friend. Get out. The media loved that story too. The narrative shifted slightly. Maybe everyone in this situation was flawed. Maybe nobody had clean hands. The emergency board meeting at Adelac Pharmaceuticals was brutal. Grace sat at the head of the conference table, facing 12 directors who looked at her like she'd committed fraud. You lied to us, said Mr. Ajay, the oldest board member. You presented yourself as a humble doctor while making decisions about millions of dollars in company assets. I never lied about my qualifications or my commitment to this company. You lied by omission. You let us believe you were struggling financially while sitting on your inheritance. Mrs. Chen, the CFO, pushed forward a stack of papers. We've received calls from shareholders threatening to divest. They question your judgment. Grace kept her voice level. I made every business decision based on merit, not personal circumstances. The company has grown 30% under my leadership. That's not the point. Mr. Ajay leaned forward. The point is trust. How can we trust your judgment when you've been living a double life? With respect, sir, my personal life is exactly that. Personal. I've never mixed my relationship with business decisions. Your personal life is national news. Your face is on every tabloid. People are calling you the fake poor heiress. Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. Grace, we're not trying to punish you. We're trying to protect the company. We need you to step down from active operations, take an advisory role. Let someone else be the public face until this blows over. Grace felt the weight of it all, her uncle's legacy, her dreams of making medicine accessible, everything she'd worked for. And if I refuse? Then we'll have no choice but to call for a vote of no confidence. Grace looked around the table at faces she'd trusted, people she'd worked beside. They were asking her to choose between her integrity and her inheritance, between love and legacy, between Marcus and everything else. Victoria sat in Chief Johnson's office, perfectly poised in a white designer suit. Her father, Chief Nwosu, sat beside her, all business. Emmanuel, be reasonable, Chief Nwosu said. This scandal is hurting both our families. A union between Marcus and Victoria would stabilize everything, show the public that our families stand together. Chief Johnson steepled his fingers. My son loves someone else. Your son is infatuated with scandal, Victoria corrected smoothly. Grace Adelek is beautiful and accomplished, I'll grant her that. But she's also the reason Marcus is being destroyed in the media. Is that really what you want for him? What I want is for my son to be happy. Happiness is a luxury, Chief Johnson. Surely you know that. Victoria leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet. Think about it pragmatically. Grace's company is in crisis. She'll have to step down or sell. Without her position, what is she? Just another rich girl who lied about being poor. The relationship won't survive the pressure. Chief Nwosu added, meanwhile, a marriage between our families would strengthen both our positions. The Nwosu Group's construction contracts combined with Johnson Industries' resources. We'd dominate West African infrastructure. You're asking me to trade my son's happiness for business deals? I'm asking you to be practical. Victoria's mask slipped slightly, showing the steel beneath. Marcus will grow to appreciate what I offer. I'm patient. I can wait for love to develop. But I won't wait forever, and neither will the media. Every day this scandal continues, both our families lose credibility. She stood, smoothing her skirt. I'm giving you 72 hours to convince Marcus to do the right thing. After that, my family will publicly distance ourselves from yours. We'll let the Johnson name burn alone. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Chief Johnson's phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. I need to take this. Marcus met Grace at a quiet cafe in Lekki, far from cameras and crowds. They sat across from each other like strangers, the weight of everything between them. My board wants me to step down, Grace said quietly. Your father is being pressured to arrange your marriage to Victoria. The restaurant fired good people because of us. We've hurt everyone around us. We were just trying to find real love. And look what it cost. Grace's voice cracked. David asked me yesterday if you were a bad person. My 15-year-old brother doesn't know whether to thank you for saving his life or hate you for lying about who you are. Marcus reached for her hand, but she pulled back. Grace, please. I need space, Marcus. We both do. We need to figure out who we actually are without the costumes, without the lies. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I love you. God help me, I still love you. But I don't know if I love Marcus Johnson or Mark Johnson or some fantasy I created in my head. You love me, the real me. Do I? Do you even know who the real you is? Grace stood up. I'm going to Abuja. There's a community health project there that needs help. I'm going to do actual work, use my real name, be honest about who I am. No more hiding. How long? I don't know. Until I can look at myself in the mirror without feeling like a fraud. She paused at the door. I'm not saying goodbye forever, Marcus. I'm saying goodbye for now. If what we have is real, it'll survive the truth. If it's not. She didn't finish the sentence. Marcus sat alone in the cafe for 2 hours after she left, the engagement ring heavy in his pocket. Finally, he made a decision. If Grace could be brave enough to start over, so could he. 3 months passed. Marcus worked 16-hour days at a youth empowerment NGO in Abuja, using his real name and his real resources. No hiding, no pretending. Just genuine work helping young people develop skills and find opportunities. Grace opened a free clinic in Ikoyi, one of Lagos's poorest neighborhoods. She worked alongside community health workers, her pharmaceutical company funding the project but her hands doing the actual work. They didn't speak, didn't call, didn't text. But they watched each other's progress from afar. Grace seeing articles about Marcus's NGO's success, Marcus reading about Grace's expanding clinic network. Then a journalist named Adaize Okoro published an investigative piece in The Guardian, The Truth Behind the Billionaire Love Story. She'd interviewed everyone, Emeka and Blessing from the restaurant, David and his parents, Chidi, even Mr. Babatunde. She'd traced the timeline, examined the evidence, and presented a different narrative. Two people, independently scarred by fortune hunters, made the same decision: hide their wealth to find authentic love. They didn't mock poverty. They sought escape from the prison of excessive wealth. Marcus Johnson worked genuinely hard at that restaurant. Grace Adelek truly served patients who couldn't pay. Their deception was aimed at protecting themselves, not exploiting others. The article included testimonials. Blessing. Marcus stayed late to cover my shifts when my daughter was sick. He never asked for anything back because that's who he is. David. That man saved my life. I don't care what his name is. Public opinion began to shift. Comment sections filled with different perspectives. Maybe we judged them too harshly. They were just trying to find real love. Haven't we all presented different versions of ourselves while dating? The article ended with a question. In a world where wealth distorts every relationship, were Marcus and Grace wrong to seek truth through deception, or were they simply human? Kenneth, reading the article from his new job, felt something twist in his chest. Regret, perhaps. Too late now. Chief Emmanuel Johnson drove himself to Abuja. No driver, no security detail. Just a father looking for his son. He found Marcus at the NGO office, surrounded by young people learning computer skills. His son looked different, thinner, harder working, purposeful in a way Chief Johnson had never seen before. Marcus looked up, shocked. Father? Can we talk? They walked through the compound, past classrooms where teenagers practiced coding, tailoring, and graphic design. Marcus explained each program with genuine passion. How they identified youth potential, provided training, connected them with jobs. You built this in 3 months? Chief Johnson asked. I funded it. These people built it. I just removed the financial barriers. Marcus stopped walking. Why are you here? Did Victoria send you? Victoria is engaged to someone else, a banker's son who finds her fascinating. Chief Johnson smiled slightly. Turns out she wasn't so devoted after all. They sat on a bench overlooking the training center. Chief Johnson was quiet for a long time, watching his son's work come to life around them. I've spent 30 years building an empire, Chief Johnson finally said. I told myself everything I did was for you, for your future. But watching you these past months, seeing you build something meaningful instead of just inheriting something profitable, I realize I've been wrong about everything. Father. Let me finish. I pushed you toward marriages that would benefit the business because that's what my father did to me. I convinced myself it was tradition, duty, responsibility. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if you chose your own path, you'd prove you didn't need me. His voice cracked. Afraid you'd be happier without my empire weighing you down. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. I've always needed you, Father. Just not your money, not your business deals. I needed you to see me, Marcus, not the heir. I see you now, son, and I'm proud. Grace was closing the clinic when she heard the knock. Through the security gate, a familiar figure stood in the Lagos evening light. Marcus. She buzzed him in, her heart racing. 3 months of silence, and now he was here, looking nervous and hopeful and terrified all at once. Hi, he said. Hi. They stood in the clinic's waiting room surrounded by plastic chairs and health posters. Not romantic, not planned, just real. I've been following your work, Marcus said. You've opened 3 clinics now, trained 40 community health workers. Your board reinstated you last month. I've been following yours too. Your NGO just secured government partnership. 200 young people placed in jobs. Your father did an interview saying he's never been prouder. Grace, let me go first. Grace took a breath. I spent 3 months being completely honest about who I am. I told my patients I'm wealthy. I told my staff I inherited millions. And you know what happened? Some people treated me differently. Some people tried to take advantage, but most people just wanted good health care and didn't care about my bank account. What are you saying? I'm saying I was afraid of the wrong thing. I was so worried about people loving me for my money that I forgot some people would just love me. Period. She stepped closer. I'm saying I miss you. Not Mark Johnson the waiter. Not Marcus Johnson the heir. Just you. The man who listened to my dreams, who saved my brother. Who tried too hard to be normal because he was afraid of being invisible. Marcus's voice shook. I miss you too. These 3 months have been successful and meaningful and completely empty because you weren't there to share it with. He pulled out a small box, not the engagement ring, something different. I'm not proposing, not yet. We're not ready for that, but I wanted to give you this. Inside was a simple silver bracelet engraved with words, truth over comfort. It's a promise, Marcus said. No more lies, no more hiding. If we do this, if we try again, we do it as ourselves. Completely. The good, the bad, the complicated, the privileged, all of it. Grace's tears finally came. Can we start over? For real this time? I'd like that. Hi, I'm Marcus Johnson. I'm a billionaire's son who's terrified of being loved for the wrong reasons. I'm Grace Adelek. I'm a pharmaceutical heiress who hides behind work because vulnerability is scary. They both laughed through their tears. It wasn't the fairy tale ending. It was something better. A real beginning. 6 months later, the ribbon-cutting ceremony drew a crowd. The first integrated community center stood in Ikoyi, medical clinic on the ground floor, skills training center on the second, youth entrepreneurship hub on the third. A model for combining healthcare with economic empowerment, funded by both Johnson Industries and Adelek Pharmaceuticals. Marcus and Grace stood at the podium together, not hiding their relationship, not hiding anything. This center represents what's possible when we stop pretending, Grace told the crowd. When we acknowledge our privileges and use them purposefully instead of apologetically. We made mistakes, Marcus added. We lied, we hid, we hurt people. But we learned that authenticity, even imperfect authenticity, beats comfortable deception, every time. Chief Johnson stood in the front row beside Grace's parents, all of them watching with pride. Chidi was there too, grinning like he'd known all along how things would work out. Even Amika and Blessing had come, having been rehired at the Golden Terrace after business bounced back. Mr. Babatundi sent flowers with a note. You two caused me more headaches than any employees in history. But you also reminded me why I started this restaurant. To bring people together. Congratulations. After the ceremony, Marcus and Grace walked through the center as families explored the facilities. A young mother asked Grace about prenatal care. A teenager showed Marcus a website he'd designed during training. Your board approved the expansion to 5 more cities, Marcus said quietly. Your father agreed to match funding for all of them. Grace squeezed his hand. We're building something real. We are. Marcus stopped walking, turning to face her. Grace Adeleke, I have a question to ask you, and this time I want to do it right. No secrets, no costumes, no pretending. He pulled out a ring, different from the first one, this one designed together, reflecting both their styles. I love you, the real you, the brilliant doctor, the pharmaceutical executive, the woman who works 70-hour weeks and still finds time to argue with me about Nollywood films. Will you marry me? Grace's smile could have powered the entire city. Yes. But Marcus? Yes? We're paying for the wedding ourselves. No family drama, no business negotiations, just us. Deal. They kissed as the sun set over Lagos, surrounded by the community they'd built, not from wealth alone, but from truth, purpose, and the courage to be completely themselves. The greatest inheritance wasn't the money they'd been born into. It was the legacy they chose to create together. One honest decision at a time. Final life lesson. True wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in authentic connections, purposeful work, and the courage to be vulnerable. Love built on honesty may be harder to find, but it's the only kind that lasts.